everyone, this is Mindy Eggen and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing some no-line coloring using my Zig Clean Color Real Brush Markers and a blender marker. The image that I'm going to be using today comes from the Delightful Daisies stamp set from Gina K Designs, and I'm going to be stamping my image on BRISTOL Smooth cardstock. I love using this for my Zig markers. So I trimmed down a piece of that BRISTOL Smooth cardstock about to the size that I needed for the stamp set, placed that in my MISTI tool, and then I have this large image of the daisies. So there's a couple flowers on this arrangement, and I'm going to stamp it in Whisper ink. Now Whisper ink is super light, so I am going to stamp it about 2 or 3 times. I wanted it light, but not so light that it was really hard to see. So 2 to 3 times was a good amount to stamp that in. Now I am going for a no line look today, but you can definitely stamp this in a black ink too. I wanted the lines to kind of disappear and look a little bit more artistic, which is why I chose the no line method. Here's a look at some of the markers that I'm going to use today. I have number 025 pink, number 070 in orange, and a blender brush. Now this is something I don't recall getting in my Zig set when I bought it, so I did have to go out to Amazon and pick it up, and I really enjoy using my Zigs and coloring my images using that blender pen. Normally when I'm using Zigs, I do more of watercoloring using a paintbrush, but by having this blender pen, it really does kind of open up some new doors for me. Another reason I like using these Zig markers is because, well, for one, the colors are absolutely beautiful, and they also have a brush tip. So they're very much like a paintbrush, very fine point, which means I can get into some of those real small nooks and crannies of my image. Now I am going to speed this up a little bit, but I'm going to use the same step and process throughout all of the petals. I started more towards the inside of the flower using that pink, blended out about halfway or added just flicks of that color about halfway of the petal, and then from the tip in, I'm using that orange, once again about going halfway, and I'm not really blending those two colors right away. You can see I'm leaving a gap of white space in there. And then I take that blender marker, I pull the pink out to the center, and then same thing with the orange, I pull the orange down into the pink. So I would say that that blender marker is kind of like a water brush, but it doesn't have the water. It's just really helping you blend those two colors together. And it's really up to you how much of each color you want to add. You really wouldn't even need to add as much as I did, because you can see it did really kind of take over the image. And because I used that no line or the Whisper ink, the ink is settling in to those artist drawn lines, which gives it that no line look. So I had colored the remaining petals off screen, and I did show you where I colored the center of the flower using the brown. And now I'm coming in with some yellow green and light green to do the stems and the petals using that same method. And really for this one, I had just that darker green on one edge, lighter green on the other, and then blended them together with that blender pen kind of meeting in the middle. Sometimes it can be really hard to see where the petals are versus where the leaves are. So a lot of the times I will actually have the stamp set off on the side for me to look at. I'll bring it into the screen here once or twice just to kind of double check, see if I missed some things, which I did. I missed some leaves and some petals. Or another thing I like to do is actually just stamp it on some white cardstock and have that off on the side too, just to use as a guide or a reference. Now I thought this could use a little bit more definition to the lines, so I brought in this geranium red, and this really did the trick. I love how this came out. I'm not blending this color. I'm literally just coloring over those artist drawn lines from the center towards, or from the inside towards the center, and then from the end of the petal towards the center. So you can kind of see how this is going. It's really adding some gorgeous definition to my flowers. Another thing that I like to do is to add little bits of highlights into my petals to kind of make it look shiny or like the light is shining in certain areas. And now to do that, I'm bringing in this white Faber-Castell colored pencil. So it's just a white pencil, and I'm just going over those center areas. I'm not pushing really hard. I don't want to completely cover that. I just wanted to lighten that area up a little bit, and this was the safest way to do it. You can see as I finish off going around those petals how that adds that nice highlight area to the center. And then once I have everything colored in, this has a coordinating die that I am using to just line up over my image. I'm going to hold that down with a low tack tape and run this through my die cut machine. So after I have this die cut, I am going to work on a background for this card, starting with Passionate Pink ink from Gina K Designs and a blending brush. I am doing my ink blending on layering white cardstock, which is one of my favorite cardstocks to use for ink blending because it is super, super smooth. Then I flip that over, went to the other end, and I'm doing Sweet Mango. Now this is just a light layer. It does not have to be perfect. I just wanted to add that color in there. And now I'm bringing in the thick brush stencil from Gina K Designs. I place that over the top of my panel and I'm holding it down with some magnets, and I'm going over those pink and orange areas again with those same colors. So I'm just adding a heavier amount of ink to this so it's going to show up on the background. So once this dries, it is going to be a beautifully smooth blended background. And I'm going to die cut this out using the Master Layouts 2 die. For a sentiment for the front of my card, I am using one that is off of the Delightful Daisies stamp set. I have a piece of black cardstock here, and I'm going to ink this up in white pigment ink and stamp that down on the black cardstock. You may notice I completely forgot to prep my cardstock, so it was fingers crossed at this point that it all works out, which it did, thankfully. So I'm just sprinkling on that white embossing powder, tapping off the excess, and then heat setting that with my heat tool. And this gives me absolutely perfect results every time. After this has cooled off for a moment, I'm going to line up one of these dies. I believe this is the Sentiment Labels die set from Gina K Designs. So I trimmed my sentiment out with that. I layered now my blended panel on top of some white cardstock using foam sheets, double-sided foam sheets. I added foam squares to the back of my image and I placed that on top of my card front. Now for my sentiment, I could have used black foam squares, but I prefer to do just skinny strips of black cardstock because my image is popped up and I want this to kind of overhang my image off onto the blended background. So by using these strips of cardstock to layer this up, I'm able to customize and get that perfectly level across the front of my card. Then I will flip this over and trim off any of the excess that's hanging off the edges there. And I'm going to finish off my card by adding a few of the dewdrop embellishments from Gina K Designs using my Connect glue that I have in these mini bottles and my embellishment wand. I have been dying to share this card with you. I had it filmed weeks ago, but I was waiting for the stamp set to come back in stock. So I'm so excited I finally get to share this with you. I hope you enjoyed the video and you're able to dig out your zigs or maybe look into purchasing the zigs. I think they are a great coloring option choice. I will have all of my supplies listed down below in the video description and over on my blog as well. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again soon. Here are a few more videos I think you might enjoy.